Next is sleep schedule. So again, this episode is all about the basic things that anybody can do to manage symptoms of perimenopause or menopause before going to hormone replacement therapy or anything of that nature, and before letting it eat away at you, right? Like instead of just dealing with it or just kind of letting it, there are things you can do to feel so much better and embrace this season of your life instead of like, okay, when will this stop and what's wrong with me? So we're really trying to get out of that and to empower you to put a little bit more effort in this season of your life so that you could take your life back and feel really good. Not only good, but like feel like once you get into managing these symptoms and you start feeling better, you're going to feel empowered and you're going to be like, why didn't I do this sooner? So sleep schedule is another one. This looks like giving yourself an hour window, PM, AM, to go to sleep and wake up. So let's say your hour window is from 9 to 10 p.m. Or more realistically, probably in this world is 10 to 11. But let's say 9 to 10 p.m. That's really dependent on when you wake up. It really does depend on when you wake up and what your schedule is. Um, that gives you a time that tells you when you should be shutting everything else down, right? Like if your bedtime is 9 o'clock, you should really be finishing emails and phone. And if you want to watch a show, what time is dinner, like all the things that you're doing between what time you're finished work, and spending time with your family, if kids, like depending on your life situation is really going to affect this. But there are a certain amount of things that you either have to do or want to do, or a combination of both before you go to bed. So giving yourself a schedule keeps you on schedule for everything else, but also maintains a space for you to be a priority. So setting a schedule, but give yourself an hour window because life. And listen, routine structure is not, it's not a Sharpie. It's not metal. It's not a bulletproof window. Like you can change it. So creating and setting a structure is really just something for you to start with and lean on and depend on. So you don't have to think about stuff last minute, and so that you're not completely off schedule and off your routine. So set a time, a window, nighttime, wake up, stick to it for 5 to 7 days, see how it feels. If it doesn't feel good or if it doesn't work, change it. And by the way, this should also include Friday, Saturday. So that's the challenging part for a lot of people. And again, on certain occasions, obviously, if there's a special dinner or an event, like it's going to change, but that doesn't happen all the time. So it's a matter of committing to a structure and making sure that's a priority because you're dealing with these other symptoms that are going to affect your life so much worse if you don't just do this one thing that's going to help you so much. So 9 to 10, we go to sleep, 6 to 7, we wake up. And give yourself a little bit of flexibility with the hour window, commit to that time. And then that in and of itself is going to help so many things. It's going to help you get your movement in the morning, which also is one of the things I mentioned, because you're not going to be so tired. Um, and then if it doesn't work after a week or so, just change the window. But the window should work. It's just a matter of when. And that can also change in seasons of your life. It doesn't have to stay the same all the time. Okay, next is staying connected. Feeling like you just don't care about anything. What's my purpose? I don't want to talk to anyone. Maybe everyone's annoying you. You're just literally the opposite of wanting to connect with people. That is kind of something you have to force your way through, because I promise you, when you do push yourself to connect, you feel better after. Otherwise, you're going to end up feeling really isolated and alone, and you're not. That's just going to be a feeling and something that you create up here, right? So you have to pull yourself out of that, and staying connected probably is, I mean, these are all important, but for me, the mental piece of this is so much more powerful than the physical piece of it because the mental piece affects everything else. And if you just don't care, and if like you're isolating and you're angry and you're depressed and I mean, everything else suffers. So staying connected to people, especially people that are putting themselves as a priority as well, and people maybe that are going through similar things as you, so you could relate but also help to lift each other up, is a really important thing to, if you don't have it in your life already, is to find that menopause.org website. You can even find communities, and there's a ton of communities online also just to be a part of. But creating a conversation as opposed to just shutting down is really important. So stay connected. Um, and then this is a really great time, as we're still in the beginning of the year, to remind you, set up like all your appointments for the year. You can call, and your dentist has nothing to do with anything, but I just thought of a dentist first, but you could call the dentist and make a dental appointment. Actually, it's all connected. I don't know why I said that. It does. Everything matters. Call it, even if your car, your 3-year service for your car, your dental, your primary care, your GYN, if you have specialty doctors, your rheumatologist, your cardiologist, your mammogram, like set it up for the year so that it's also spaced out. Because I know what happens is a lot of times you will get bogged down by just regular life. And then all of a sudden, shit starts to happen and you're trying to get into your doctor and you can't because you're calling when you have the problem and they don't have availability for a month. So while we're at the beginning of the year, make a list of the things that need sort of an annual checkup, especially again with this topic. GYN should be up at the top there. Maybe a registered dietitian would be really good for you to kind of review nutrition. Maybe a fitness or wellness coach, right? Like I could be help you through that. What should your routine look like? How should it change? And then just like regular doctors, like I mentioned before, regular professionals to make sure you're taking care of your body, a dermatologist. If your skin texture also changes, like your hair, like make a point, like all of that stuff, guys. Like make a list of appointments that you know would be good for you, some of them essential to do. For some of you, you're getting to that place where it's like a colonoscopy. I don't even know what age that is, but I know that people have to do that at a certain time. There's certain exams that when you get to a certain age, if you haven't done it yet, you should probably do it, especially if it runs in your family. All right. So regular checkups, but just scheduling the one for the year. And then because what's going to happen is if you go to your primary, especially if you're having symptoms, if you go to your primary and you go to these other doctors, they're going to refer you to someone else. So that's like another doctor's appointment. So instead of having all this stuff crunched or not getting to it until it's an emergency, just take some time in January or whenever you're listening to this. If you're listening to this, this is your sign that you probably have waited too long to go see a doctor, and make some appointments. Just make some phone calls. You're going to, the feeling that I get when I put all my appointments in my calendar, it's so, because it's just done. Then it's just done. And then you could also, has nothing to do with perimenopause or menopause, but anytime I have a doctor's appointment, I treat myself. I either plan like a really good um like lunch trip after. I'm like, ooh, I'm going here. I like look around the place. I'm like, what do they have around there? And I don't do takeout a lot. So it's a really good opportunity for me to get some delicious takeout, or depending on where the appointment is, if I have a friend that lives nearby. So I kind of make it something to look forward to so that it makes me less likely to cancel the appointment, because that is the other piece that a lot of women end up suffering for so long, because you're not prioritizing these appointments and you keep pushing them off, canceling. So tie them to something that's fun, so that there's a less likelihood of you canceling the appointment. And then, so those are all the tips before HRT, but then there is hormone replacement therapy. How do you know when? All the things that I just told you, 30 days. 30 days of that. 30 days of being intentional, of educating yourself, of hydrating yourself, of sleeping properly, of moving regularly. Like, it's a lot, but also if you plan it, it's just what your regular routine should look like. So after 30 days of being, and if that's daunting, right? If that feels like too much, just commit to 30 days. Commit to 30 days of regular exercise, movement. It could be a walk, any kind of movement, yoga, whatever you like. Commit to 30 days of reducing stress, however that means to you, of nourishing your body, of hydrating, okay, of all of these things, of connecting, being intentional about seeing people, of educating yourself. And if after that month you don't feel better and things are getting worse, I mean, if you haven't got your labs done yet, again, get your labs, check your hormones. I know some people that were told that their hormones were fine and they weren't. So that's another thing too. Like, if you feel off and you've tried all these things and you still feel off and something doesn't feel right and your body and mind are slowly going down, okay? Get a second opinion. And again, these are all things that take effort. But once you do, the effort honestly is really just initiating the action. Once you initiate, the appointment, initiate sitting down at your computer to educate yourself, initiate buying the book on Amazon, initiate, reading for 15 minutes before bed to educate yourself and to stay on your sleep schedule. A lot of these things combine also. Like, when you move regularly, when you start eating better, when you're hydrating, when you're connecting with people, guess what you also do? Your stress levels reduce, right? Like, your body starts to function better. So like, you have a ripple effect, or you have a one thing kind of depends on the other. So write this list down. And if you didn't go back, let me just recap for those of you who are lazy and didn't write anything down and you don't want to go back and listen to it all. I'm going to recap for you. The first is accepting that you're in a transition. Okay, stop trying to have the body, the life, the thing that you had before. It ain't here. It ain't happening. Accept that you're going through a transition. Number 2, educate yourself. Number 3, daily movement and exercise. Number 4, proper diet, nourish yourself, and that includes hydration. Number 5, supplements. That should go after blood work. Don't start taking supplements just because you heard some beautiful actress/model take them, because she probably looked like that before she started taking the supplement. Stress management. What works for you? Okay, what makes you feel less stressed? Sleep schedule. I realize I stopped numbering things again. I always do that. I get halfway and then I forget what number I'm at. Sleep schedule, 1 hour window at night, 1 hour window in the morning. Stay connected. Schedule all your appointments. And the last, after all those that you're consistent with for 30 days, consider hormone replacement therapy. And how do you know if it's right for you or not? You're only gonna know if you try it, right? So if your hormones are off and you're hesitant trying it, but none of this other stuff is working, you might just want to try it, and you can always get off of it, right? That's a journey in and of itself. And it's a very personal choice. But if your quality of life is really being affected, and these kind of simple tools that take effort, but anybody can do them, like the food, the water, the exercise, educating yourself, if that stuff is not enough, get your hormones checked, get a second opinion, especially if they're saying your hormones are fine, but you feel like something is off and you're in your 40s and, like get a second opinion, or even if you're in your 30s. And then maybe try it, maybe try a course of it, try 6 months, commit to it and just say, you know what, I'm going to do this and see how you feel. And if you don't like it, the season is going to end. So that's also different for everybody. Your lifestyle and your choices that you make regarding what you consume, whether that's what you're watching, what you're eating, what you're listening to, the relationships you have in your life, like all of this stuff has such an effect. I have a program called Bikini Boot Camp, which the name is very misleading because it has very little to do with a bikini, but it's very marketable. So I will not change the name. But during that program, we really focus on all of these things. Wellness, I approach wellness in a very holistic way because everything affects everything. And, not even 30 days, 2 weeks in, I have women who come to me that are like, I've never had, I'm so tired. I have belly fat that I've never had. I have, I don't want to exercise. I have no motivation. Like I have women who come to me that all of a sudden it feels like they can't get it together, right? And they may or may not attribute it to perimenopause or menopause. And 2 weeks into Bikini Boot Camp, where they're being intentional about the nutrition, the movement, the mindfulness, her symptoms, in my experience, 100% go away. It's not even like they lessen, they're gone. Their mood is better, their energy level is better. They care, they have motivation. They're not as mean, because sometimes I made a joke to one of my friends. I was having a conversation. I don't remember who it was, but I've started eating. This is totally thanks to my boyfriend. Have to shout him out for this because he is a great cook and he cooks so like healthy and nourishing, and all of the food groups are represented and we don't cut anything out, but like everything is so nourishing is the only word I can think of. But I was talking about this and the difference in my nutrition since meeting him, really, and how I've had to kind of meld the two and like adapt. Um, I'm like, is that why I was a bitch for so long? I was just hungry. Like, I literally feel like I just wasn't eating enough for so long. And I was so much more snappy. I mean, I'm still very snappy, but I was very like short and easily agitated. And this was in my late 30s and going into 40, it was getting worse. And honestly, I don't have any symptom that I would have. It's just like a regular person. Like sometimes I want to hit someone. We all do, right? Like that's just part of being human. But like regularly, I'm in a great place. I have a ton of energy, too much for some people. I'm motivated to do more and better, and I feel happy in my life. And there are times when I feel myself kind of getting into the state of the stuff that I started to feel when like my mood would really dip, and it really has to, and it's when I'm not in my routine. It's when I've stopped eating properly. It's when I haven't hydrated properly. It's when I've not taught in a couple days and haven't prioritized my movement because it's cold outside. It's like whatever, it literally is linked right back to my routine. And as soon as I get back into my routine, I really am asymptomatic, if that's the term. I don't have any symptoms. So again, that is not everybody's story. This is 40 for me, right? For me and for my clients, a structure that they stick to has drastically improved, if not totally removed, symptoms from perimenopause and menopause. So before you do hormone replacement therapy or consider that, you can try all these other things. And you don't have to try all these other things. You could certainly just go right to hormone replacement therapy. I do always recommend a second opinion before getting on a medication that could change your body and life. I do recommend that. But that is for you to decide always. Be your own advocate. Know your body so well that you know if something is off so that you can have the conversations that you need to. There are pros and cons to everything. There are pros and cons to looking shit up on the internet. There are pros and cons to going to one doctor and getting diagnosed. Because you could go to a doctor who's excellent, they could prescribe you something and it could work. There are pros and cons to everything. But for me, I like to explore all the options, get myself educated so I could have a conversation and questions. Because even if I'm not an expert in something, I can have questions to the person who's an expert so that it makes more sense to me. Because that's another thing when you start talking about this issue, and this is why I really wanted to do this episode as well, because when you read and you talk about this, like, it doesn't have to be so scientific and medically driven and statistic driven. Like, you don't, that's great. You could educate yourself on your own in that stuff and in that way. But if you just simplify and kind of take a step back, you don't even have to go there. There might be a time when you will, but you might not even be there yet. Again, hormone replacement therapy is in the future of a lot of women. It might not be you yet, it might be you now. Don't shut anything out totally that could be an option. Or try not to. And try not to take one thing you read or one person's opinion all the way to heart. Make it a reinforced referral, reinforced resource, so that if you read or you hear one thing or someone told you one thing, try to get backup or dual information so that when you go that route, you know that you did your due diligence. You are the only one who is going to look out for you in the way that you need. You are the only one that knows how you feel every second of the day. No one will ever be able to understand that or feel that. And that is powerful. So I know that sometimes you might feel lost and like you're unsure about what to do. But I want you to step back from that feeling, step back from those feelings, and know that you have so much information about your body. You have so much information about what makes you feel good, what makes you feel peaceful. So focus on that. Come back to the basics. That's going to improve not only symptoms of perimenopause and menopause, but your life. And report back. If you're dealing with symptoms and you implement this stuff, report back and let me know how you're feeling. And of course, I'm always here to help. My email is fitlikekris@gmail.com. My website is fitlikekris.com. And every week you can learn a little bit more and educate yourself a little bit more on the Fit Like Krys podcast. Thank you so much for listening. I'll see you next time.